Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the JKWD podcast, where sometimes you just need 8 or 9 words or however many I just said to just change your whole energy. 'Cause that's what we do, right?
Was it just the words, Josh? Was it just the words? Look,
It was the way I said them.
I think it was the delivery too, right?
Exactly.
Somehow you're away from the microphone. I'm not hearing you.
Oh, okay. Well, I think the microphone needed to go for a walk. I should let it exercise more often.
It's actually, I don't know what happened if it got low because it's still low for some reason.
But
anyway.
Yeah, well, I will
jiggle your cable. There's no video. That's good.
Well, I also wanted to make sure that I didn't make a lot of noise. Actually, what probably happened was my voice got really loud, and so the mic overcompensated.
That could have been it. That's better.
Yeah. Anyway, wow. Hello, Diversion. Man, we had a good podcast today. You're gonna hear it in a little bit. We talked to Kristi Saare Duarte, which sounds like a mouthful, but you should learn how to say it because they're just vowels. That'll be the bookmark on this episode. Just vowels, people. They don't hurt. You can learn to say somebody's name. It's okay. But we talk about healing and travel and Jesus and a whole bunch of stuff. But first, Kelvin, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine, thank you very much, Mr. Shear. I'm sitting here finishing up coffee, finishing up tea, finishing up water. I'm going to have to run soon, I'm thinking. But yep, having a good day, having a good week, and just loving it.
Great. Yeah, you look like you're... I'm good. You look like you're about to say the sun's shining and then change your mind because it's not. I can tell from your window.
Well, it's brighter out, but the sun.
Yeah, I think it's brighter where you are than it is where I am. But neither of us have sun.
No direct sunlight, but there are spots in the whitish gray clouds. So
yeah, I'm sitting here with a cup of tea and just enjoying my morning.
There you go.
We're brought to you today by Audible. If you want a free audiobook, a free month at Audible, go to audibletrial.com/JKWD or text JKWD to 500-500. They will send you a link right back. And, when you sign up with our, it just fix us a cup of coffee or something. So that's much appreciated if you would do that. You can get something like Lamb, the Gospel According to Christ's Childhood Friend Biff, by Christopher Moore. It's narrated by the actor Fisher Stevens, and I really, really, really like this novel. It does the thing that, if you're familiar with the film Dogma by Kevin Smith, it does its best to make you laugh, but comes with the lessons. About being nice to each other and being nice to others and strangers and putting in the hard work. So that's one possibility.
Yeah. Or you could listen to Where'd You Go, Bernadette? How'd you like that? Bernadette Fox is notorious to her Microsoft guru husband. She's a fearlessly opinionated partner. To fellow private school mothers in Seattle, she's a disgrace. To design maven, she's a revolutionary architect. The review at the bottom says, misleading cover contains excellent novel. So, get that. That'll be cool. 9 hours and 35 minutes of entertainment for that. Sounds like a great buy.
Yeah, it does.
For free.
For free if you text JKWD to 500-500 or go straight to audibletrial.com/JKWD. Hey, speaking of JKWD, come on by jkwdpodcast.com for show notes. You'll hear Kristi give her social accounts at the end of this podcast, and we'll have them linked up so you don't have to go. We'll take care of the vowels for you. How's that?
Yes, indeedy. But it's a very interesting podcast, so.
Yeah, it is. We cover a lot. So we're going to shut up, and on the other side of the music, you're going to hear Kristi. Josh and Kelvin World Domination Podcast, where we talk about better humanhood and teach you how to dominate your world. You ready? Here we go. So why don't we start by saying, by telling us who you are, what you do, and why.
Okay. My name is Kristi Saare Duarte. I'm an author and healer, and I think what really makes me perhaps different from many other people is that I've traveled pretty much not everywhere in the world, but every corner of the world. I've visited more than 80 countries. I've lived in 5 countries. And I think that having done that makes me, or has given me like an idea that I want to open people's minds with my writing and kind of bringing peace to the world is like a big concept. Of course, I want to be part of it, but more than anything, I guess, I want to help people see that we're all the same, like at the core, like whether we're Republicans or Democrats, whether we're Christians or Muslims, whether we're Black, white, Latino, Indian, at the core, I think we're the same. And a lot of what I do in my writing is to, convey that message, and also to get people to understand that there's no single truth.
Great. What prompted your travel?
I've always been traveling. So when we were kids, then my parents would pack us in a car and we would drive all over Europe. So I'm from Northern Europe, and it's easier, of course, but also my dad had a business. Mm-hmm. So he would, and in the beginning, they didn't make a lot of money. So he would take us on business trips, and we would just, if the trip went to Germany, then we would travel through like Denmark, Holland, Germany, Belgium, then we would maybe end up in like France or Spain or England. And I just I think a lot of people have done the same. Like you get this traveling bug and you just can't stop. There's always more to see, more places to go. The world is so amazing, so so I want to keep going. I'm not like, I will never make it to 196 countries in the world, but I want to make it to 100 at least.
Wow.
What have been some of your favorite places so far, and why?
Ethiopia is fantastic. Definitely will go back. Many people don't know this, but Ethiopia has a lot of different cultures. So it has the Christian culture. It has an area where there are 1,000-year-old churches that were like dug into stone, like the rock face. They just started somewhere and they dug like down in the ground. They have the Muslim area. They have Harar, which is one of the most sacred Muslim cities in the world. And then they have the Omo Valley, which is where you find these tribes with like big like ceramic plates in their lips, and they're like, naked pretty much, and they like walk around with machine guns, but like a baby in the arms and a machine gun in the back, and like without any, pretty much naked. So it's just fascinating. And the other country that's like on top is Tibet, because the people were so warm, and so happy that people went there, because they feel like so suppressed by the Chinese. So like one day we were walking around town in Lhasa, and this man comes running, like shouting, and he just throws his arms around me, and like we're just laughing, because there's just so much joy there and so much warmth, I guess.
Wow. I need to get out more.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much to see.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, you said right up top that, deep down we're all the same. What else, what other sorts of lessons are you learning from talking to people as you travel?
I think that women in a lot of the world are very suppressed, and at the same time, I think they're stronger. It makes me more of a feminist, I guess, when I travel, because you see women who don't have any rights. Like in Niger, for example, on average, a man has 4 wives, and with each wife, he has like 12 children. So you can like imagine not being able to work, not able to do anything, just give birth to children, and then you share this one man with other women, and Niger is one of the poorest countries in the world, so you can just imagine how strong a woman has to be to just survive it. So that's something I think about.
Wow.
So, I mean, I was looking at your website yesterday, and you've done some writing. We're going to get into some of your writing down here because you piqued my interest on a bunch of stuff. But aside from the travel and having people realize that we're all the same. I mean, I like that as a concept. But what's your real hot button? What really gets you enthused and really energized about the things that you do?
In terms of writing, or in terms of
writing or traveling or talking to people?
I think like when I was very little, when I was like a young teenager, then living in Sweden, which was very homogenous, right? And started getting like, I grew up in Stockholm. My parents were refugees, but from Estonia. So I looked like everyone. My name was different, but I looked like everyone. And when there started coming more and more immigrants during the early 80s from Muslim countries, and of course their attitude then towards towards women in general, but like towards everyone, was different. And there were people from like Iran, Iraq, mostly, I guess, during that time. And I remember being so angry and really like fighting against this, like, just because I look like you, I'm accepted, but you don't understand that these people, they look a little bit different, but the people who you notice are the bad people. Like, there might be 100 good people, and one person does something bad, and he's from a different not race, but different culture. Then you say like, oh, everyone from that culture is like that. So the same goes like with religion or anything. Like I live in Harlem, so in Harlem I'm the odd one out, right? So most people super nice, like really nice, but once in a while, like people walk by me and say like, oh, you horrible white person, what are you doing here? And I think that, as you say, as a concept, is great, and I don't know how much I can do to change anything, but I think that I want to be a part of the change in terms of somebody can treat me badly, but I don't say that everyone who looks like that or is from that country or is from that religion is the same. Like you have to go deeper into it.
Hmm.
So when we have parties, we have this nice terrace, which is very unusual for New York City.
Mm.
Then when we have parties, a lot of the time we have people from like 15 different countries. They're just, I think the more you're mixed with people who are different from you, even if it's the same, like you're like white person, but one is like Jewish or one is Christian or whatever. But the more we mix, the more we can bring understanding of other things into the world.
Okay. So how successful have you been so far?
I don't know. I think that my success comes from no big waves by any means, but I think it's person by person. You treat people nice, then they might think like, oh, like when we travel, for example, they might think like, oh, you're European. Europeans are usually very cheap, or they're usually very, bossy or whatever. Then I can be the person of change for that person that I meet. So one by one. But if more people were doing that and treating others equally, then we can make a change. Like on my own, I'm not making a huge change, but a little bit.
But you got it started. That's good.
Yeah.
So, how does your Reiki tie into the rest of your philosophy?
Well, I think that when you do something like Reiki, and you connect to, whether you do it through like Reiki, like healing, meditation, you connect to the universe, and every time you connect to the universe or God or whatever you want to call it, you bring the God energy into you, and that heightens the frequency in the world. So it becomes better by every time somebody meditates, somebody gives healing to somebody. Like it's like, these little things that we can do to bring more positivity into the world.
Cool.
Am I super flaky?
No. I actually, I'm a Reiki practitioner. I don't.
Okay.
I do it for, friends, and I'm not doing it as a lot of people are doing it for their business. I'm not doing it for that. I got it so I could help people feel better, get rid of migraines from here, from
Yeah. No, I do the same. Like when my husband's Peruvian, so when we were living in Peru, then I did it as a business. But now, like in New York, I do it as a side thing for like friends. I offer it up if anyone needs it. So, but eventually I will probably go back to doing it more full time, not full time, but at least on a more like professional basis. But we'll see what happens.
Okay. Awesome. What are you thinking, Josh?
So, I'm coming back to the book. It's called The Transmigrant. And I'm going to have you tell the story, because having a Jew basically read a blurb about Jesus is going to come off as a Jew reading a blurb about Jesus. So,
man, don't do that when I'm drinking coffee.
So tell us what the book's about, but then why you approached it, because I think it's important to say that it's a novel, which means that it comes primarily from your heart and head, not from trying to find a niche that hasn't been attacked before.
Sure. Yes. Do you want me to go ahead?
Go ahead.
Okay. So the book is about a novel, as you said. The novel is about Jesus traveling through Asia and studying Hinduism and Buddhism, and how that influenced what later became his faith, which today we call Christianity. So the story behind it was that I had for a long time thought about how, when I first came to New York, and there was this guy on a train who said like, oh, you all have to believe in Jesus to be saved, and that's what you need to do. And I was kind of like, he was handing out some leaflets, and I said no thank you. And then he started attacking me for not wanting to take his leaflet, and he said like, oh, you're going to go to hell. And he was like shouting at the car of the train like, look at her, like she's she's shaking her head, but that she's like the devil and blah blah blah. So I was like, hearing that, I thought that, I was not religious, I'm still not religious, but how could Jesus, if he was of God, be a bully? Like, why does it bring out this like bullying in people who say like, oh, you have to believe this or you're going to go to hell? Because
and nowhere in Jesus's teachings does it say thou shalt take leaflets.
Right.
Are you sure? Because I'm thinking maybe somewhere back in the
yeah.
might have been a leaflet clause. Come on.
I think that's a really good one. Yeah, that's what I should say next time it happens to me. It doesn't say that in the Bible.
Yeah.
So
I have a feeling you've studied more Bible than most people who would do.
Well, now I have. So I had this like idea, like started thinking about, oh, Jesus is, I think he was of God, but I think parts of the Bible probably have been added later and stuff like that. So it was in the back of my head. And then one day when I was in India, I was traveling in India, I was in Kolkata, then I saw this guy selling books on the street, and one of the books was Jesus in India. So I picked it up and started reading it, and it's about this Russian explorer, Nicholas Notovich, who in 1880 traveled through northern India, and he broke his leg. He ended up in a temple, Tibetan temple, in the Himalayas, and that one day one of the head monks said to him, do you know your Jesus was here? So this Russian explorer then like wrote down the story, like they translated it from Tibetan to French, because in those days everyone spoke French. So he transcribed it, he brought it back to Europe. He said, wow, now we know what happened in Jesus' lost years. And the cardinals, everyone said like, no, like don't talk about it, like keep quiet, like this is not good. Mm-hmm. If you want money, we'll give you money, but just don't do anything with it. But he was so sure this was true, so he published a book anyways. Mm-hmm. So the book is called the Secret Life of Jesus Christ. So I started reading it, and I thought like, this is really interesting. I want to look into it. And then I started, actually, when we were living in Peru and I wasn't working full time, I started first I read the Bible, the New Testament. Then I started watching videos and started like digging deeper and deeper and deeper into it, and reading, books pro and not pro and con, but like from different angles, just to get like what makes sense to me. And mm-hmm. since I didn't have a religious background, even though like Sweden and Estonia, they're both Protestant, but they're very like not religious at all. I could kind of like approach it with an open mind, because I hadn't been like indoctrinated with it. And then I came to the conclusion that, is it true? Like, did he travel to India? Makes a lot of sense. It does. I can't say for sure that this is what happened, but I wanted to write about it, and I wanted to write about it in fiction form, because I just like fiction. I just like writing mm-hmm. fiction and make it like alive. And it's interesting because a lot of the people who have read it, even though they're Christian, they say, wow, this is like really plausible. It could have happened like that. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's against Jesus, but it's meant to like open your mind to that maybe there were other possibilities. And in the end, all that matters is that we are all the same. We're all of God, or we are all God.
Now tell us about that title, the transmigrant.
The transmigrant. So
what does that mean exactly?
It means somebody who migrates, like either mentally, or usually it's used in physical sense, right? You travel, but you don't migrate to one place, you migrate through.
Okay.
So for me, that, like Yeshua in the book, he migrates both on a like mental and spiritual and physical level. So it kind of fit the theme.
Yeah, we do kind of. I say we in the. My father was a Baptist minister, so at Baptist and then Methodist and then Baptist again. We kind of we tend to give all power to Jesus, and then and then we narrow it back down to this little area, this little place. And one of the reasons that I am probably out of favor with some of my friends is because there's just things that don't make sense to me. So I can't buy the entire doctrine. Just because it number one, God is love versus here, let me wipe out your country right now. those two don't right. They don't go together well with me. With God is love. I love you. By the way, your country just left. Sorry, you can't be there. That sounds more like Star Trek and the Klingons.
Right. Right.
So,
but then also, like when you look into the sources of the Bible, then so many of them have been added later on. Mm-hmm. So what I did when I wrote was like I focused on anything that was written up to 40 years after Jesus' death. Mm-hmm. So most of the Gospels are written after that.
Right.
Right.
Really?
So, and the Gospels were not
being 70 years after.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
So I thought, like, okay, so let's say, like in those days, people didn't live that long as they do today, right? So people who had known him would have already died by year 70, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we will never know what the truth is, but I thought that, like, by limiting it down to, years closer to his death, then I was kind of picking from the maybe more credible sources.
I mean, even among the religions that are prevalent here, some of them have some books, some of them don't have those books. And we picked this up because he came over here. The Mormons have a different collection
right
than most Christians do and stuff. So it's like, okay, so how come theirs is wrong and this is the one? And I've never been able to figure that stuff out. So I don't, and I haven't studied it. I've just used, what logic I have and what sense I have. But this was a very, very interesting conversation. So how about, Josh, did you have any more questions there?
Well, keep going. You sounded like you were.
Yeah. I was going to the next area here about the Virgin of Galilee. And, talk to us about that a little bit.
So the Virgin of Galilee was in the beginning included in the Transmigrant. But as I was like shopping it out to people, then I realized it doesn't really belong, so I cut it out. Mm-hmm. And then I've published it separately on my website. So the Virgin of Galilee, so it's like in the Bible, it kind of starts with like, oh, Jesus' mother, then she gets pregnant, and then, she has a child in a stable, and then everyone, like the wise men come, and then like, that story. But then also when you
conception and
right. Yeah. So when you start looking into like the sources that are more authentic, as I believe, there's nothing about the Immaculate Birth.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this rumor about a Roman pretty much like raping Jesus's mother, and that's his father.
Mm-hmm.
So I, again, like, is it true? Is it not true? It's probably just a rumor, but it made for a good story because because first of all, I don't believe in Immaculate Birth, and in those days, like every Roman emperor, every like person who was like a god of some sort was born had an immaculate birth. Like everyone was like God was their father, and they were also gods and all that. So that was like a lot of like what was going on in those days
Mm-hmm.
in the Roman Empire and in the what is now Middle East. So what intrigued me was that Jesus's father is always like portrayed as older.
Mm-hmm.
So why would he in those days, like if they're engaged,
Mm-hmm.
like why would he, if he wasn't the father,
Mm-hmm.
believe that she got pregnant by God, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, a normal guy, like even today, like you would be like, oh, let's take a paternity test. Like it's not like, however,
Right.
however angelic she was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a guy wouldn't just say like, oh, you're pregnant and you didn't sleep with anyone else. I mean, of course they would think so.
Oh, don't forget, he was visited by an angel that told him stuff, right?
Right. So my story kind of like mixes that whatever is like the traditional Jesus story about the conception. So yes, she is raped by this Roman soldier,
mm-hmm.
and then she's kind of like cast out from her village.
Mm-hmm.
Like she was always like the prettiest, most popular girl, and then she's like cast out of the village. I mean, not physically, but
mm-hmm.
she's kind of. They say that she's kind of like dirty now, kind of like it is in today's like Middle Eastern countries.
Mm-hmm.
You're raped, the woman is guilty, right? So then, since Joseph is supposed to be older, he kind of takes it upon himself, like, okay, there's this girl with a child, like he's a widower, and then takes her on. And then in the story, like the Virgin of Galilee that I wrote, the angel does come to him, but he's like, is this a dream? Is this like, what is it? Like, am I dreaming?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of trying to make it a little bit more logical
mm-hmm.
than the traditional story and more plausible. And then, the wise men, they don't come around until Jesus is older because that's what they believe happened. They didn't come at birth. He wasn't born in a stable. Bethlehem was the Bethlehem of Galilee because there was no census in year 4. The census was in year 8 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the exact date. The what is it called? The murder of the innocent. What is it called? Where they say like, oh, that Herod said that all babies shall get killed.
Oh, right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That they believe it was Herod who wanted to kill his own children. So it didn't happen in year 4 because year 4 is when they believe that, like 4 BC,
mm-hmm.
is when they believe, like everyone has like consensus among theologists that he was born. So since the historical facts don't line up, then I've tried to tell the story based on the historical facts more than tradition.
Mm.
I guess.
Wow. That's quite a lot of work. Quite a lot of work. So have you gotten any, they're novels, but have you gotten any pushback from people on these 2 books you've written?
The funny thing is, like, I expected to get hate mail.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't gotten any yet.
Don't say yet. Don't call it.
True.
Well, on the other hand, if somebody's sending you hate mail, then it means they're paying attention. So
Well, there
Right.
you go. Okay. I yield to Josh in this instance.
So what I've received is like bad reviews. Like the great majority of reviews are 4 and 5 stars.
Mm-hmm.
Once in a while, I get a 1 or 2 star, but
Mm-hmm.
I haven't so far received a review where they write anything.
Mm-hmm.
But when I write about it online on like Facebook or Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
then people sometimes say like, "Oh no, you're wrong, and
Mm-hmm.
Jesus is this and that," and like whatever. So I try to approach them with love, like saying like, "Oh, I'm happy you found something to believe in." But then they're like, "No, you have to believe what I believe." So then I say, okay, like I believe what I believe, and that's my truth, and I'm happy you found your truth. And then after a while, it stops. So, but that's
Mhm.
that's the only thing. It hasn't been as aggressive as I expected it to be, I guess.
Oh, good.
Because I'm not right. Excuse me.
I said, congratulations. That's
Thank
good.
you.
That's good. But from where I'm looking, it takes because you're very soft spoken, but I can tell that you have a great deal of passion for what it is you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it took a lot of work to
Yes.
do that research,
Yes.
to look at those facts, to evaluate all of that stuff. So how long, how long have you had you? I mean, you started out when this became a purpose at one point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
from the point that you started that research to the time you actually wrote the books, what kind of time are we talking about? Like
6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
So you researched and studied and hunted for 6 years.
Yeah.
Around the world before you wrote these. Wow.
Yes, and I traveled to some of the places too. Just when I had finished writing, I traveled to like India and Nepal and Israel to just look at some of these places to just make sure that I got it right. But I was doing the research while I was writing, so I kept finding more books. Like, oh my God, like this angle. Oh, I have to read this. Oh, I can put this in. So, and then when I started writing the follow-up that I'm working on now, which is about Jesus' brother after the crucifixion and how he leads the disciples. So when I started doing research for that book, I got more information and I'm like, oh, I need to add this or that. And I mean, I'm in so much debt to all the historians and theologians that have written, like really researched this, because I've just picked their fruits, so to say. Yeah, but yeah, it's interesting because it starts making sense. Like the pieces of the puzzle starts like falling into place, and you're like, wow, this to me now, that's the real story. I believe it, even though I know the truth could be completely different. And if I could, I would go with a time machine back and see, like, what was it? Like, was Jesus a warrior, like some people think? Or was he like this? Was he angelic and angel, or was he a human being? Or, it would be interesting to see.
Well, I got to tell you, other people's bibliographies are also my downfall. I can kind of start in one place and you're like, oh, I need to read that and that and that and that and that. Oh no.
Yeah.
Josh is a very, very, very logical. He likes concrete stuff too. So
yeah.
sometimes we have conversations and he'll come back with, well, according to this, and I'm like, I got nothing to say because I haven't studied, I haven't searched, I haven't looked, So I'm like, well, he's at least done the work, right? So
yeah.
So I'm just going on logic and what I'm feeling in my heart and stuff that just doesn't add up for me. He's actually got some study underneath it. So yeah, we have good conversations.
Yeah.
He's gone a long ways towards opening my mind to some things and closing.
And vice versa. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really cool.
So one thing I wanted to ask you about was you've got Jesus. You kind of follow Jesus traveling through other nations, and you being accepted and learning from teachers there. You're the child of refugees, and you travel a lot, so you meet a lot of people. And we're recording in December of 2018, when here in the U.S., we're having a very closed border time in our lives. Now, 105 years ago or so, when my great grandparents came over from Ukraine, just before the Russian Revolution, they got out, before bad things happened to them, and they were refugees here, and like your childhood, we looked like people here, but being Jewish, we weren't considered white, when we first got here, which wasn't all that long ago. I mean, like I said, my great grandparents. So I never met them, but I knew three of my grandparents well into my adulthood. So, what can we learn about and from those stories of people being able to cross borders, even if they're of a different ilk, if you will, of a different faith or race or culture? Why why is it important that we get to do that?
Well, I think that the whole immigration thing is so complicated right now, because, I mean, even in like the same thing in Europe, right? So, and the same thing in the United States, like on one hand, you have to help other people in need. On the other hand, like right now, there are what did you say, 150 years your great grandparents came?
Yeah, not even like 105, 110.
Right.
So yeah, it's not that long ago. Yeah.
The world was completely different in those days. It was much harder to travel. It was much harder to leave your country and go somewhere. And the world is smaller today. So, and there are a lot more people than there were just 100 years ago. So I think that on one hand, I want to say, oh yeah, the border should be open. On the other hand, what happens then if everyone congregates in one country? Like in Sweden, for example, during the whole Syrian crisis, right? I don't know so much about it because I don't live there, but they opened the border to everyone, and they had so many people come in, they couldn't control it, right? Because people come in, yeah, you open your doors, you also have to make sure they have somewhere to live, that they're fed, that they're get integrated into the society, and stuff like that. So
yeah, Sweden is not a very large country from a population standpoint.
Exactly. It's a large country in territory, but in population, it's like 10 million people. So if you have 10 million people and 1 million refugees come in, it's a problem, So I'm really torn, like when it comes to this immigration crisis.
Well, I mean, is it possible that we're missing another Jesus? Because that's really, what. That's really what I feel. We've talked about a little bit is Jesus goes to India and travels through places where he's learning from other peoples. With the idea that he's coming back home, he's not going out to stay, which is different from what we're talking about with immigration. But
I mean,
how do we watch out for somebody who how do we not neglect someone who might change the world by coming through and learning from people he can't reach at home?
It's a good question. I think there are people today who are reincarnations of holy men. I think that the Dalai Lama is one of them. I think he is of peace. There's this guy called John of God in Brazil who heals people. I think that the world today does not want to accept somebody who comes with peace. I think I mean, this sounds really, really hopeless, but I think that you could. I mean, just look at like the Republican and Democratic like fights in the U.S. If somebody comes and is of a good heart, then somebody else is gonna like beat up on them and say like, "Oh, you're weak," you know. So I'm not talking about anyone in specific. I'm just talking in general, like whether it's like one side, Republican or Democrat. I'm not taking sides right now.
You wear a different jersey than I do. You must be, you wear a different jersey than I do. You must be a bad person. Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and there's a couple of things out there too. We had Josh. Who did we have? Well, the Dalai Lama came to Syracuse once, and we had him in the dome, and you know, he was talking with the Native American community here, and one of the things that they said at the time was that peace is a very dangerous business. You know, people don't actually want peace, and something that I had not realized at the time is how much of the U.S. economy was tied to war.
Right. Yeah.
So, you know, if war stops, then man, there's those industries that got nothing to do.
Right.
If you need so if you make umbrellas, you need it to rain.
Yeah. So and it's kind of it's a wild thing. I've never even wanted to think about along those lines, but between those conversations, and then we had a young lady who was Marla who was that we interviewed, Josh, who said that, you know, that the U.S. was one of the most militarized. I hadn't even looked at it. I was like, so like we're all peaches and cream, and I'm like, not so much as I used to think, you know. But
yeah, we spend more than the next 7 or 8 countries, maybe 9.
Yeah.
And military. So,
but I think that's like I mean, I kind of have this theme in my novel as well, that everyone's waiting for a Messiah who will come and fix it all. I mean, I don't think we can wait for a Messiah to come and fix it all. You know, there's nobody, there's no single person who can do it, but we can do our part.
Right.
Like that's our responsibility to do our part in like bringing peace to our surroundings. Mm-hmm. I think that's all we can do. I mean, it's
in our own neighborhoods, and let it spread out from there. Maura Sweeney was who I was trying to think of before.
Okay. Yeah.
And the name of that podcast there was like The Courage of Happiness. So it was a great one. So so anyway, so with all your travels and with all your experiences and the people you've met, and I mean, so many people you've met. How many countries now?
It's around 80.
80? Wow.
Yeah.
What can you say about, you know, Josh and I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago where we're talking about, you know, if you look at the numbers, there's a lot of things where the world is actually getting better. We're better off than we were. We've got more wealth than we ever did before. We've got better education and stuff like that, less disease and so forth. But from all the places that you've done and the people that you've talked to around the world, what can you say about the world as you see it? I mean, you said we're all the same and got that, but what else can you say about the world itself that gives us hope?
To give you hope. I think that the world is so rich in just culture, and like every country is different.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I mean, as I said before, like I think at the core everyone is good, like whatever they do. But I think that we all should travel more and meet more of like people who are different from us, and just I don't know, and also maybe like meet people in our own neighborhoods who are different.
Well, there's an idea.
There's I have a friend. I have a friend who he's Jewish and he lives in New Jersey. And one of his friends started something called the Syrian Supper Club, which I think is such a beautiful idea. And they're Jewish, and they're inviting these like Muslim people who are refugees,
Mm-hmm.
and have them cook a Syrian meal, and then they pay as if they were being in a restaurant. So then they get they have somebody to translate.
Mm-hmm.
So they get them kind of integrated in the society and get a feel for what the U.S. is and everything on a very friendly and warm and positive basis. So I think that's like, to me, like those kind of things warm my heart. When in January there was this. In January, was it last year or this year? I think it was this year. There was this the Muslim ban. You know, you go to the protests and you see Jewish people stand up for Muslims, and then there was another protest where the Muslims were standing up for the Jewish. And I think that like those kind of things, like when we see, to me, it's like it blows my mind. I think it's like, countries fight countries, but people don't fight people.
Right.
A lot of the time it's just on the higher level, upper levels,
Mm-hmm.
that the fighting takes place, but on a humanity level, then people are warm and open and helpful.
Good observation. Thank you.
It's like the Christmas truce during World War I, when everybody just took Christmas off and played soccer with each other.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what country you were fighting for. You were fighting for the country. You weren't fighting against the other people in the church.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've been to a lot of places and met a lot of people, and you said you lived in 5 countries. Are you going to continue moving around, or like why the U.S. right now?
Why am I in the U.S.?
Yeah.
Oh,
why have you decided to settle here, and are you staying here? Or are you going to keep moving around?
I want to keep moving around. I am very impatient. Like, I'm not a stayer.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been married now 12 years, which is a miracle and I'm happily married, but I've been in the same job for 5 years, which is the longest I've ever been in a job.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in the U.S. for 20 years, except for 1 year when I went to live in Spain, and 1 year I went to live in Peru. I think that somewhere else is always better, which is not necessarily true. But my husband and I have been talking about doing 50-50, like 50% in New York and 50% somewhere in Europe, because his whole family is here and my whole family is in Europe. So I miss Europe. I miss the going to the market. And
y'all actually need to live someplace in the Atlantic to get.
Right, exactly. I'm looking like
build yourself a new island. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly, like Canary Islands, Spain, Italy, Greece, somewhere warm and nice and fresh fruits and vegetables. And
there you go.
But my husband's he likes New York and the speed of life here. So we have to compromise.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So this is the part of the podcast where I ask everybody their least favorite question. Is there anything you want to talk about that we haven't gotten to today?
Yeah, that is that's a hard question. What is it I want to talk about? I don't know.
I mean, did you come in here with an expectation to hit on something that we missed?
Not really. I think
Okay.
I've spoken about what my beliefs, which I'm not trying to push on anyone, but I think that that it's good to be open-minded and not try to judge people based on whatever preconceived notions you have. So I've spoken about that. I spoke about my books, travels, healing. Yeah.
Do you have a wish for the world at this time?
I think we should be more kind to each other. And I think it's so easy to just smile at somebody, like when you're buying a coffee or somebody's opening up the door, or like you don't want to be creepy because sometimes it can come across as creepy.
Yeah, but, watch out for that. Yeah.
But there's so many times, like, in the mornings I walk to the subway and, you just pass somebody and you say good morning and smile, and like it lights me up. It lights them up. If you give like a smile from your heart, not just like a plastic smile, it lights up that person. It kind of lifts your spirits, and it's so easy. Like things like that are so easy, like a simple smile. So I would like us all to smile more.
All right.
Sounds good to me.
Where can people find you online? Where do you hang out the most?
Okay, so I'm on Twitter at Kristi Saare. My website is, you can go to thetransmigrant.com. I'm on Instagram, author Kristi Saare Duarte, which I know is difficult to spell. Facebook, I think it's at Kristi D NYC.
All right, and we will have links in the show notes, so people don't even have to try to find that.
Or spell it.
Right.
There's a lot of activity in there, Kristi Saare Duarte.
Yeah, I know.
That's an orchestra. That's a area.
People told me that I should make it easier, but I have the Saar is my maiden name. My parents passed away in 1994 in a ferry accident. So I want to kind of like give credit to them. And then Duarte is my husband's name, and it kind of is part of who I am today. So I wanted to have those two names there and make it really complicated.
People are just going to have to learn how to make their lips work to say that.
Yeah.
it's just a little education.
Yeah, try it.
They're just vowels, people. Vowels. Not going to hurt you.
So there you go.
Oh.
Well, awesome.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for coming on our podcast today. We appreciate you. And
thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing all your knowledge and your experience and your thoughts. And you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's been so much fun. You guys are great. And have a nice holiday season. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Bye. Bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. Show notes and more at jkwdpodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends, and we will see you next week. Bye. A Better Humanhood production.